We were done with select command till the third class, and then yesterday we looked at insert, update, and delete, right? Command. So how to insert into a table? There are different ways to insert data into a table. We saw how we should insert if we want to insert all the columns at a time, and how do we insert if you want to insert one single row, or if you want to insert more than one row, two, three rows at a time. We saw how to do update. We do update and then the table name, and then we do set and whatever values you want to set with a where clause. Then we saw delete command. Delete also, you have delete table and then you just have a where clause. We saw that we should not forget to add where clauses in both update and delete, because if you forget to add, it may end up corrupting the whole data. And I think I also gave you this ID, which is that of this question, to practice some questions from last session. Hoping I also given the commands to create the table and insert data into the table, so that you guys will be able to execute these commands and try it on your local machines if you're not done so far. Okay. So with that, what we are going to discuss today is we'll try to look at create table, alter table. We also discussed how to create a database, delete a database, and then alter the database name and all. Okay. So today we'll look at create, alter, and drop commands for a particular for tables. Okay. We'll see how to do it for tables. So we discussed this also, right? I was showing you how to what is the basic syntax of creating a table. You have the create table command. Then there is this optional field that you can give if not exists. So what this does is this will only create the table if the table is not existing. If you don't put this and the table already exists, it will throw an error saying this table already exists. Okay. And then you have column definitions. So what does a column definition contain? A column definition contains the name of the column. So here is this column name one and the data type. So we discussed about different types of data types, right? Int, char, float, wide, varchar, binary, blob, var blob. So a lot of different types of data types that we had discussed. So we specify for a particular column what is the type of data that we want, and then we specify certain constraints. Constraints, what are constraints? We'll discuss about constraints as well. Then after we have defined all the columns, then we have table level constraints. So just like how we have column level constraints at every column, we have a table level constraint that is for all the columns in the table. So if I want to choose a condition that is for more than one or two columns at a time, let us say I want the table to be in such that two column value together should not be greater than 100 or less than 100. So that how do I define? I can define those in table constraints. Okay. So that is check. We can also define we can define primary keys, unique keys, foreign keys, and all at a table constraint level. Okay. So just go ahead. And I was showing you this example how to create it. I found out what the issue was yesterday. I just take this, do a create table and show it to you now. Okay. Okay. MySQL workbench. Okay. So if you see what this command is, you have a 1 second, Control H. Okay. So just to tell, yesterday I was finding it difficult to find out what was the issue, right? It was not creating a table. Even though I had put a space there, it was showing some error, right? So what happens is there are different types of character sets. So a space in PowerPoint is different from a space here. If I do a space here, right, it is different, and a space here is different. Even though by looking, it might say it might look the same, that this is also a space, that is also a space. The character type that we're using here is different, and the character that is needed in MySQL is different. Because of that only, if I copy, sorry, if I copy this thing, right, it throws an error saying this red line. Okay, I can show that also to you how I figured it out. Okay, so let us say you have a show characters. I was doing this. So if you see, okay, So if I copy the value from PowerPoint and see, right, show me the characters. So you can see here. So the space here is, what is it coming? It is some value. It is called Unicode string. So here it is U plus A0. The space here is U plus A0. But what MySQL accepts is, so because of that it is showing error here, right? What MySQL accepts is, I can see. So this is what was present in PowerPoint, and this is what is present in MySQL. So MySQL wants the space to be, it is ASCII 32 0x20. So the character set used in MySQL and the character set that was used in PowerPoint is different. So that is why MySQL is not able to understand. So we just made it into MySQL spaces. Okay, just explanation if somebody wanted to know why it was not working yesterday, it is working today. Okay, so moving ahead. So what is the structure? You have a create table, and then you have the name of the table. The name of the table is employee table here. And then you have the name of the column. So ID here is name of the column. Name also is, this also one column. Occupation is one column. Age is one column. And after all the columns, I was saying, right, table level constraints. So primary key here is a table level constraint. It is on which column? It is on column ID. Okay, I'll explain what is primary key and all, but for now, just think of it as it says this ID column should be unique. Okay, unique. And then you have the data type here. Int is a data type, varchar is a data type. This is also data type. So 45 means this name can be of max size 45. 35 means here the max size of occupation can be of 35. And int is again normal integer, and then this is again table constraint. And after the data type, you can see there are constraints here. Like not null is a type of constraint, auto increment is a type of constraint, not null is again a type of constraint, not null, not null. Okay, so this is our proper definition of a table is create table, name of the table, name of the column, data type, and constraints. Same for all the columns, and then you and at the end your table level constraints. Okay, so if I do control enter, it created a table. Okay, so how can I see if it has created or not? I'm currently using travel database. Okay, so in travel you can see employee table. This is created, right? So what if I try to create the same table again? It will throw an error. Right, you can see red symbol here. So it is saying table employee table already exists. Okay, so that is why sometimes I might not know if the table is existing or not. So then I can use if not exists. So what this will do, this will only create the table if this table is currently not existing. Okay, and it will not fail the query. Here the query has failed, so it will not fail the query. So if I do control enter, so you can see the query didn't fail, but it just gave us one warning saying this table is already existing. Okay, but it is fine for us. If it is existing, we have told it not to create. So it is only creating if it is existing. Okay, so this is what is a basic syntax of a table. Moving ahead. So I just wanted to show some other useful commands of table. One is show table and describe table. I'll tell you what all of these do. So let us say I am inside this travel database. I want to see what all tables are present inside this database. So what do? I do show and I tell tables. Okay. So you can see it is showing me all the tables. There are 3 in this travel database: airplanes, employee table, and manufacturer. Okay. So let us say I want to go to some other database and see what are the tables. Will I do that? So how do we switch to a database? We have discussed this yesterday. We use command, use, and then the name of the database. I said I use company. So what this will do? This will switch to company database. Now inside company, if I do show tables, it will show me what all other database, what all other tables that we created. You can see, right? We created Amazon yesterday. We renamed Amazon Electronics to Amazon. That is Amazon. Then employee detail, employee table, all this. These are all the tables in that. Okay. So now let us say I want to know what are the properties of a table. Like if you see here, if you select, you are able to see this, right? What are all the columns and all. via query, if I want to know, how do I do that? So we'll switch back to the travel database, use travel. Okay, so it is showing green, and then I'll do describe employee table. Okay, so now you can see when I did describe employee table, it is showing me what all are the fields, what all are the columns. ID is one column, name is one column, occupation is one column, age is one column. Okay. Then what is the data type? One is of int, one is of varchar 45, 35, and int. And we have also specified, right? If you look at the definition, we have specified not null for all the 4 ones. So that is why you see null is no. So it means this table, this column cannot have null values. Okay. And I'd also specified ID to be primary key. So that is why key here is primary. Okay. And what other and default says what is the default value of the column. Okay. So the default value I have not given anything. So default value is null. Okay. And I also give auto increment property for constraint for ID. You see here, we had given auto increment constraint. So what this will do, I'll tell you what auto increment is, but for now, just remember that it is a type of constraint. Okay. So yeah, you see auto increment here extra. Okay. So this is what if I say let's do describe airplanes. So this has lot of columns. Okay. So let's just see. See, I describe airplanes. And enter, you can see, right? So this has even more columns. There is plane ID, plane manufacturer ID, and then there are different types of data types. And you can see there are a lot of nodes, and then said parking area can be S. So this means parking area can have what null value. And you can see there is one primary key and there is one MUL. What is MUL? What is for manufacturer ID? I think it is foreign reference, foreign key. Okay. And then you have default values also for 2 of them. Create date time last update. So both of them have default value that is current timestamp, and they also have some auto increment and some other properties. Okay. So this way you can take and see the definition of any table that you want. Okay. So let us move ahead. This is what. So now we discussed about what is create table. So let us look at alter table. So what alter table does? So let us say I already created this table. Okay. Where is our table? An employee table. Okay. So now let us say I want occupation. Occupation is by default empty, right? So let us say I want to change the property. So I cannot do another create table and change the property, right? It is not possible. So what I can do, so that time I have a property called as alter table. Okay. So what alter table does? It is used to modify the structure of an existing table. So what all is possible from alter table? We can add a column, you can modify a column, you can delete a column, you can change the data type, you can change name, you can change properties, and also you can also add constraints, delete constraints. So you can do a lot of things with alter table. I'll just show you one example. So let us say I want occupation default value to be software engineer. Okay. So let us say, what do I do then? Do alter capital table, and then name of the table. What is the name of the table? Employee table. So we say modify, and then you have the column name. What is the column name? Column name will be occupation. Occupation, and then default. Data type will still be varchar. Varchar 35. We'll do not null. And then we say default software engineer. Okay. So now what it will do? It should modify. Okay. So see, it has been succeeded. So now if I go and do, let us say, let's keep it. Table. Bring it this way so that I can see. Describe table, not table, table name, employee table. So now you can see, right? So it has changed. The default type, default value of occupation has changed to software engineer. Okay, I'll tell you what default value does, but default value is like if I've not given any value while adding a column, it will automatically add this value. Okay, so default value has become software engineer. So let us say I wanted to make this column, age can be null. It says age cannot be null here, right? So let us say I wanted to modify age can be null. So how will I do that? Alter table name, modify, take the name of the column, age is of type int, and it was not null, right? So I'll allow null. Okay. Okay. So now we have done this modification. So now if I do describe table, see, it says null is possible. Okay. So this way I can do a lot of things using alter. You can even drop a column. So let us say I want to drop column age altogether. So then how will I do it? Alter table, we drop column, I think. Drop 1 second. Modify, it should not be modify. Okay. What is drop. Drop column. Yeah, drop column. It should be drop column. So you do drop column and let's say I do drop column age. So what this will do? This will actually remove the column age from it. So now if I do describe uh, employee table, so you can see the age column itself is gone, right? So I don't have age column itself showing it here. Okay. So this is what is alter table. So we will look at how to do a lot of other things when we go to alter table, like go through the examples. But for now, just understand that alter table is used to modify the definition of a table, modify the definition of the constraints of the table, that is table constraints, or you can modify the column data type, column name, column constraints, and all. Alter and delete difference. Okay. So delete is by delete, what do you mean? Delete. So delete is for rows, right? So when I do delete command, so let us say I take, for example, currently there is nothing inside employee table. Select star from employee table. There is nothing, right? So let's say I do insert into employee mm, table values. Let's say ID is 1. And then what else do we have? Name is who asked the question, Rishikesh. And then occupation is software engineer. Now we have inserted. So if I do select star from employee table, so you'll see one Rishikesh. So if I do a delete, what I'm doing? So delete from employee table where ID is equal to 1. So this will delete the row, right? There is nothing. So what delete is doing? Delete is actually deleting the content inside of the columns. It is not modifying the definition of the column, or it is not doing anything related to the definition of the table. Whereas alter table is actually going and modifying the column names, and or it is adding any column, or it has got to do with the definition. So alter is for content inside the table. Okay. Whereas no, sorry. Delete and update. delete, update, or insert. All these three are for content inside the table, whereas create, alter, and drop, all these three are on the table. They're like definition of the table. That is why we have this, no? So why we have separated them? Data, why is insert, update, and delete common data manipulation language? Because you're not dealing with the definitions of the table or database or views or anything. You're dealing with the data inside the tables. Okay. Whereas data definition language, create, alter, and drop, these are actually working on the definition or structure of the tables. Not just tables, any other entity, table, procedures, functions, and all. But they're working on the structure of those properties. So that is why this is data definition language. This is data manipulation language. Okay. How to rename a table? There are many ways. One is you use alter table command, or you use rename. Like for example, let us say I wanted to rename employee table to employee new table. So we just use rename employee table to employee new. Why is it showing an error? Employee table EMPLOYW. Have to do table. Okay, did I write it wrong here? It should be renamed and I'll update it. Okay. So now if you see, we have updated the table name from employee table to employee new. So if I do a refresh here, we should see employee new. And also if I do show tables, it should show me employee new instead of employee. Okay. And also you can use alter command. Alter table, what is it? Old name, new, rename it. Okay. Table name, that is employee new. Then you have rename to new table. What does it say? Let's say we want to go make it back to employee. So here again, we have changed the table name back to employee table, right? Just come back to employee table. Okay. So we need to modify this. Rename table. Okay. That also works. Yeah, I'm not sure. Alter table name change. Data type. No, data type is not possible for table. So data types and all come only for column, right? So table on its own does not have any data type. So the data types are present only for columns. Okay. Let us go ahead. So we discussed about create table, alter table, rename. Then there is another query called drop table. So what drop table will do? Drop table deletes the table existing the whole table. Okay. So what it does, it removes all the data from the table, and it also removes the structure and definition. Okay. So if I do drop table, nothing will be present. All of the data will go away. And there is also another option that you can use if exists. So you can only drop a table if it exists. So you can use this, and then you can drop more than one table at a time, many tables also. We'll just see this. So let us say I try to drop a table which is not present only. Drop table, let's say hello. Okay. So it should throw an error saying unknown table travel not hello. But if I say this, if exists, so this will give me warning. So saying the query ran successfully, it didn't fail, but it is giving a warning saying that hello table didn't actually exist. Okay. But let us say we had a table, employee table, we created just now, right? So let us say I do drop table, employee table. Okay. So now what it has done, now the table doesn't exist anymore. Okay. So the table is gone. The data that is inside the table is gone. Everything is gone. Its structure, you will not see the table at all now. Show tables. I do. So that table is not there. So I cannot recover it also. Unless I have created a whole copy of this database and stored somewhere, I cannot recover it. Okay. That is it with the drop table. So what is the difference between delete and drop? So again, if you look back, delete is a command in data manipulation language. So with delete, you can delete the content inside the table. With drop, you're actually deleting everything inside the table plus also the table. Okay. So that is what is with drop table. So I was saying about you have constraints, right? So when we looked at this property here, create table, not null, auto increment, not null, primary key and all. So we'll talk about these type of constraints. Okay. So constraints will be of two types. One is column level and one is table level. So column level constraints apply for each and every column. So if you specify it in front of a column name, that constraint is applied for that column. Okay. Whereas table level constraints apply for the whole table. Okay. What are some of the column level constraints? One is not null. Not null, what it does, it ensures that whatever is the data that is entered into that column is not null. Okay. It should not be null, whatever the name suggests. So just like what unique means is that all the values that are entered inside that specific column, right? They should be unique. You cannot repeat. And check allows you can specify a function inside a check, and it will ensure that that check is always passing. Then default, we just saw what default does. Default sets a value if you're not entering inside that, if you're not giving any value for that particular column. And primary key. So primary key is a combination of unique and few other properties. Okay. So what are those? One is it cannot be null or empty. So a unique key can be null, but a primary key cannot be null or empty. And there can only be one primary key column in a table. So what do I mean by one primary key column? So if you make a column or one or two columns together a primary key, you cannot have more than one primary key. Okay, two primary keys, if you do it will fail. Okay, let me show all of the column level constraints to you one by one. Okay, first. So we've deleted the table, right? Let us create it again. Okay. Okay. Sorry, there are some more constraints. I didn't cover auto increment, right? Okay, these are the other two constraints. So one is auto increment. So what auto increment does is you don't have to give a number to it. So let us say things like ID, right? ID keeps increasing 1, 2, 3. It's like, let's say if there are 100 students in your class, normally how the teacher would give roll numbers. Roll number of first student is 0, second student is 1, third student is 3, fourth student is 4, like that, right? So similarly, so, MySQL gives an option where you don't have to enter the ID for it. ID or any column you can say keep this value automatic. So what it does, it itself keeps incrementing the value one by one. Okay, so these are generally used for primary key fields so that all the numbers are unique. Because it is incrementing one by one, there is no chance it will give an older value and make it non-unique. Okay, and another property is enum. So what happens in enum is, let us say there is one column like payment type, and I want to only give specific options for inserting. Like payment type can be debit card, credit card, cash on payment, or Paytm wallet. So like this. So it can only be any of this. It cannot be random uh, saying ABC or XYZ, right? So it has to be any of the few 3, 4 values. So those kind of constraint, that kind of constraint is called enum constraint. Okay. So let us look at all of this. We'll take this, create. So let's say we have created a table. So I'll take the space, more normal space. I'll create a space here. This control V, replace all. Okay. So now all we'll be checking here. We'll be checking property not null, auto increment. We'll check. Okay. It only has not null, auto increment, and primary key. So I'll show you how all these work. Okay. So let us say I create the table. So I've created the table now. When I do select star from employee table, so there is nothing initially. Okay. So let us add first item. Insert into what is table name? Let's rename the table one. Rename table, employee table to EMP. Okay. It becomes very difficult to type this whole thing every time. Okay. So insert into EMP. Okay. And uh, let's say values. So initially what I'm trying to do. So EMP table, if you see what is its structure, it has ID. So let us say I told you ID will get auto incremented, right? So I'm not going to give ID here. I'll give name, I'll give occupation, and I'll give age. Okay. So now if I do values, so let us say name, I'll give wants to go Bharat, Barath. Bharat. Let's say his occupation is intern. Okay, and then age is 23. Okay. So now if you see, I've added Bharat to the database. So if I do select star from EMP, so you can see, right, what has happened. So Bharat got the value 1. How did he get the value 1? Did we write in this while inserting saying add value 1 to Bharat? No, we didn't add. So how did this happen? So MySQL knows that this column ID has auto increment constraint. So if somebody has auto increment constraint, it is MySQL's duty to go and add the number. Okay. So let us say I add one more employee. So I'll add Bharat ho gaya. Next is Akanksha. K-A-N-S Akanksha. K-A-K-A-N-K-S-H-A. Okay. So let's let her values also be the same. So now if I've added these both and let's say execute it, insert or select. Okay, so select from employee. So now you can see, right? So Akanksha has got the ID of 2. So how did this happen? Again, because we have auto increment, MySQL is taking care of incrementing the value by 1 and then it is auto incrementing. So if I add one more person, it will start again with Suraj Kumar. It will add new value for them. Suraj is 3. So what if I delete somebody? So let us say I delete the person with ID 2. I deleted Akanksha. Delete from EMP where ID is equal to 2. So now if I do a select star from EMP, so Akanksha is deleted. I have 1 and 3. Okay. So now I'll add a new employee. Let's say I add Jayant. Let's say he is front-end developer. Okay. So now if I add, what will be the number? What do you think? Will it be 2 or will it be 4? What will it be? So I've added. Any guesses? 2 or 4? Okay, it will be 4. Yeah, people who have guessed it in the chat, they're right. So why it will be 4? So MySQL cannot always keep a track of how many numbers or how many values are previously deleted, right? So it becomes very difficult for it to keep track. So you can go delete anything. So what it does is it is always forward looking. So what was the last number that it had incremented? It had incremented 4. Okay. So now because it has so now it has incremented 4, the next value if I try to add, it will be 5 only. Okay. And if I want to give something, I can do that also. Okay, so let us say I add here name and I add here ID. I can give my own ID also. That is also fine, but later on it might clash. So let's say I add 5. Okay. So it has added 5. So if I do select star from employee, added 5. Okay. So now let us see what will happen if we remove this and then we try to add one more. Okay. Okay. So it has taken care to add it to 6. Fine. So then it knows what is the last number. Whatever is the number of the last item that is added, it will be one higher than that. I think. Say if I do ID, let's say if I do 10. So 10, and if I remove this, and if I do insert again, I do 11. Yeah. So whatever is the last value that is added, it adds +1 to it. Okay. Cool. So let us say I remove the auto increment property from it. Then what will happen? Let's see. Okay. If I do describe EMP, so you can see ID doesn't have auto increment property anymore, right? So now if I go and say enter here, right? So I remove all this. So now you can see what is happening here. I have not given the ID here. I have not added the ID here also, and I'm saying enter, go ahead. So what is it saying? It is throwing me an error saying field ID doesn't have a default value. So because we have specified scribe, because we have specified that this cannot be null ID, and since it is a primary value, we need something to be present in it, right? So that is why it is saying you cannot, and there is no default value, so it is saying you can't add empty to it. But if I give ID and do something, then it will work. ID, comma, let's say I do 100. Okay, so now it will get added. Let's start from EMP. See, right, 100 giants is added. We added a lot of giants. It's okay, but 100 is added. Okay, so this is what is auto increment. Okay, so now let us say not null. So we have said all these properties should not be null. If you see here, describe. No, 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 no. Right. So none of these can be null. So what do I mean by that? So I cannot insert null here. If I do this, it will say column ID cannot be null. Okay. Let us say I do 102. Let us say instead of adding Jayant, I add null here. So what does it say? Column name cannot be null. Okay. But again, I can modify the column to have null properties. Okay. Alter table EMP, modify column, and then EMP, not EMP, sorry, name varchar 45. So you have to, whenever you're modifying, right, you have to define the whole column properly again. Column name, what is the data type of the column, and then any extra properties. So let's say I wanted to allow to have null. So now you can see if I run this query, it will pass. See, it has added, there is green signal. So if I do select star from EMP, you can see that 102, the name is null. Okay, got it? So I'll show you one more special thing now. Okay, so now that one property is null, so what if I try to add null property to it now? So now the name currently has one null property. So what if I try to say not null now? I'm trying to tell it, okay, this column currently does not have not null as a property, not null as a constraint. Add this not null constraint. So what do you think? It will pass or fail? Will this query pass or fail? Yeah, it will fail. Why will it fail? Let's see, what does it say? Invalid use of null value. Okay, it doesn't say anything much properly. But why will it fail is select star from EMP if I do. So there is already one column, one row in this column, which is having null value, right? So if I do not null, this constraint will fail. Why will it fail? Because there is one column inside your table which is null. So I cannot allow that to happen. So then what I can do, I can modify this to have some random value. Then if I do this, it will work. Let me show that also. So how do we update a value? Update table name, that is EMP, set name is equal to who wants to go next, Tasif. Tasif, where the ID is what, 102. Okay. So now if I do this, so what has happened? Select star from EMP. So now 102 is not null now. We have added a name, we added task. So now if I do this thing, alter table emp modify column name varchar not null, it will work. You see, this has worked, right? So now again, if you go look at the properties of the table, that is describe table name emp, so you should see that yes, this value name cannot be null anymore, right? So that is what is null and not null. So let us talk about I think we discussed primary key also. I'll tell again. So what primary key does is primary key is helping us to identify that all the items that are there in this particular column, right? ID are unique. We cannot add a duplicate value. Like for example, let us say we already added 102, right? So let us say I try to add 102 for somebody else. Let's say I take who have we not used until Raj Nandini, okay? So let's say we added 102 for her, and then we are trying to say she's front end dev, and this is age now. Age is 23. So will it pass? It won't pass. It will say duplicate entry. So it means 102 is already there. You cannot change it again. Sorry, 102 is already there. You cannot add the same value again. But I can add some other value, 110, let's say, and this should work. It has worked. 110 has been added. Okay, cool. So now, how will the table look? Should we select staff employee? 102 will be added. Even if you say this to be ID to have null as okay, right? It will not be allowed because primary key should not have null value. Okay, so let us say I do alter table emp, modify column name, column ID, and let's say I keep it null. Okay, it's a type int. Okay, and if I do enter, so now this should succeed because okay, wait, this itself is not succeeding. See, it is saying all parts of a primary key must be not null. So that is what is about primary key. So how is unique different from primary key? So unique plus not null is equal to primary key. Okay. So that is the only difference. Good. So if a row is unique and if it is not null, then it is a primary key. Plus there is also one more constraint. There can be only one primary key in the table. Okay. So remember this also. If I try to make two keys, two columns primary, it will fail. It will fail saying you cannot make two keys primary. Let me show that also to you. Okay. So we copied this thing. So now let us say I made ID also primary key, ID also as primary key, and then I made okay, so I'm talking about primary column level constraint, right? So I can add it here as well. That is table level. So here only I can say int not null auto increment primary key. Okay. So let us say I want to make two primary keys. ID is also primary key and is also primary key. So it should say cannot do like that. Okay. Okay. So if I do control enter, see what does it say? Multiple primary key defined. So what does that mean? It is saying you cannot have more than one primary key. Okay. But you can do one thing. That is, you can have a combination of these two together as primary key. Okay. So I can say primary key and it will be a combination of ID and name. So this is possible. So here what is happening? These both together should be unique and these both together should be not null. Okay, so if I do enter, so this has created the table. Okay, so let us say we call it EMP1. Employee table name is again difficult. So how this works, I'll show this to you. Okay, we name table employee table to EMP1. Okay, select star from select start from EMP1. So EMP1 doesn't currently have anything. It is empty. Okay, to describe EMP1, what does it show? It says primary. So this just means that the primary key is a combination of these two keys. Okay. So how does this work? We'll see. Okay, we've done auto increment. Okay, it's okay, fine. We'll add keys ourselves. So when I do insert into EMP1 values, so let us say I do 100, and then I do what 100, and we'll start with something. We'll start with Minal. Minal and his role is ABC, and then age is 23. This is fine. So we've added. So now if I do 101 Minal, this will also work because it is a combination of these both that is checked. Okay, this is also fine. But if I try to add 101 Minal again, now it will fail saying duplicate entry. For if you see here, right, it is not just 101. What is it saying? 101 comma Minal, comma not 101 minus, that is dash Minal. So it is saying 101 Minal is already there. So please don't add this person. But I can add somebody else with 101, and this can be, let's say somebody else, Khyati, Khyti. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing you people's names wrong, but see. So the roll number is same, but I've added somebody else's name. So if I do select star from EMP1, what happened? Let's just remove this. Okay, select star from EMP1. So now here you can see with 100, I have Minal, that is fine. But also I have people with two same role IDs. If only ID was a primary key, right, this wouldn't have been possible. It would say there are two columns there are two rows that are with having same ID, please don't add it. But since I've made a primary key, a combination of ID and name, it is saying it is possible. 101 Khyati is one different primary key, 101 Minal is one different primary key. Okay. So I hope this is clear. So let us say what else did we have in the table? Okay. We had this ID or not null, auto increment, name, varchar, occupation. So instead of primary key ID, right? So let us say I wanted to create a table where two keys were unique. Okay. So here what happens? Now, similarly, I can say ID comma name as well here again. So now what happens? There are two columns which are together unique. Okay. So single one can have same values. I don't have any problem. ID can have 101 and similarly 101, Khyati 101. It can have as many as 101s as long as the name for all those 101s is different. So if I run this, the table is created. Now, if you see the description of this, describe, we don't have table, right? Describe EMP. So now if you see, oh, sorry, it should be LOYE table. Okay. Oh, why is it showing primary key? It should be unique. 1 second. Okay. We defined it to be unique, right? Okay, wait, I think it takes, if you give one unique, it takes it as a primary key automatically. Okay. Let's do a drop table. Drop table, that's that employee table, sir. Okay. Let's say I do this, primary key is ID, and then the combination of name and occupation is unique. Okay. Let's say name and age is unique. Unique, name, comma, age. Okay. I do control enter, it has created. So now let's see the describe employee table. So now if you see, okay, so now it says MUL, name and age. I think it only takes one. It shows the first one to be MUL. But now names should be unique also separately. ID is anyway primary key, but if I try to add people with uh, two CNMs, it will throw an error. Let's just show that. Insert into what is it? Insert into employee table. Uh, Say we have name. What else are we inserting? Occupation, and we are inserting age. Okay. So now if I do values, let's say if I try to insert somebody with the same name and same age twice. Let's say name is Karthik. Karthik. Occupation is intern, and then age is 23. And I have somebody who's again same. Okay. Who is Karthik, who is also 23, but he's a SDE. Okay. So now when I try to run this, it will fail because uh, Karthik and 23 is same twice, right? So and I've mentioned Karthik and 23, the name and age should be unique. Okay. See, what is it saying? It is saying duplicate entry for Karthik 23, right? So it is not inputting the first value as well. It is not doing anything. It is initially checking values that will cause me a problem if I insert them. It is seeing that, okay, there is two such values which will cause a problem. So it is not inserting. So remember, we had discussed one thing yesterday. So what do I do if I want to allow at least the first one to go through? If people remember, we had discussed a property yesterday that if I add that property to the insert statement, it will allow at least one of them to go through. Do people remember? Yeah, ignore. Okay. Insert, ignore it. So now if I run this, you will see first one has been added, the one with Karthik intern and 23, but the second one has not been added. You can see one warning. It found that the first column was already inserted, so it said I cannot insert it again. Okay. So we have done, we have discussed not null, and we have discussed the unique. We've discussed default. What should be the default value? Let's say we want to let's discuss check now. Okay. So we'll delete the table. Drop table EMPLOYW employee table. Okay. So drop the table. Now let us say we say I want to only allow people into my company. The employee age should always be greater than 18. Okay. So if somebody's age is less than 18, I will not allow them to enter. Okay. So what can I do that time? I'll do check age is greater than or equal to 18. Okay. So now, sorry. So now I've created this. Let's create this table. We'll rename it small. Let's say it is EMP3. Okay. So EMP3 is a table name. So we have created this table name and we have added a check that age should always be greater than 18. So only if this is true, we'll be able to add items into a table. Okay. Let's just check how it shows in the describe table. CRI describe table. What happened? Sorry, table name P3. Okay. So it is saying, okay, I think check is not showing here. It doesn't show check here. Okay, fine, that is fine. So now let us say I have this check, right? So now if I try to insert something into the table, insert into PMP3 values. So what is the EMP3 name? So name will be, let's say, who wants to go? Ujjwal. Ujjwal. And his role is senior software engineer. And then but his age is 12. Okay. So let us see if it try to insert. Sorry, I think we need to add the ID as well if you're not giving by default. So let's say the ID is 1 because it's first. So now if I try to enter, it is saying check constraint EMP3 check 1 is violated. Okay. So this is the check that we added. EMP3 check 1, whatever this is, right? So it is saying this is violated. Why is this violated? Because the age is less than 12. So now if I try to make this person's age 18 and then execute, what happened? Okay. Yeah. If I try to make this person's age 18 and execute, it should pass. Right? You see one row affected, green signal. So that means this has been added. So if I do select star from EMP3, so the age is 18, right? So you saw that it was saying this check constraint is not proper. So how can we name it better? Say 2y2. Next, Ujjwal is not there. Karniraj. Okay, Karniraj is there, and his assistant software engineer. Let's call it AC, and his age is 16. He's been a very talented guy. So at the age of 16, he has become assistant software engineer. So now if I try to run this, it says again, EMP3 check 1 is violated. So can I name it better? Yes, we can name it better so that when this check is violated, right? So the people who are seeing this, and they should be able to understand what is it, what are they being, what are they violating? Okay. So we'll create the table again. We will rename it back. Okay. Drop table B3. Okay, it is working now. Why is it not working there, man? Okay, so it has created with this constraint, right? Age not null constraint. Okay, so now if I run this, now I've created this table. So now if I do a insert, right? So now if I do 16, it should say, oh, EMP3, PLOYW employee table. So now if you see what is it saying? Check constraint, age constraint is violated, right? So now I'll be in a position to understand what is being violated here, that the age is lesser than what is required, right? So because of that, it is failing. So now I know that why this person is not able to, why we are not able to add this person into the table. So that way, we are giving better naming and better. Somebody who comes in the future and let's say he doesn't know anything about the constraints that have been added. So if it is this, he'll understand quickly. Okay, there is some issue with the age. I need to check why, and then he'll do whatever is required in the future. Okay, so that is what is check. And let us say now we had, let's again drop table by table. So I can also add more than one check for constraint. Okay. So let us say I didn't have any constraint yet. So here, if I add, I'll be able to add constraint for only one, right? So let's say I add a constraint like check. Here I added, right? Check age is greater than 18. So can I add another column name here, like occupation, and I cannot do that. Why? Because what this place, I'll only be able to access this specific column, age column. So if I want to add more than one, I can do it here. So I'll do check age is greater than 18, and let's say length of name is greater than 8 characters. Okay. So we are discussing yesterday about string functions, right? So length is one of the string functions. So length of name is greater than 8 characters. Okay. Again, why is it saying check age? It's not saying anything here, no? A key ID to column. Okay, let us put a column. Sorry. Okay. So what have I done? I've added a primary key plus also I'm doing check on two different columns. Age is one column. I'm saying age should be greater than 18. And I'm also saying length should be name of the length of the name should be greater than 8. So your name should have more than 8 characters. Okay. So I think we can name this constraint now. Constraint name and age. Name and no, I think it should be the same. Name age check. Okay. So let's say I create this table now. So the table is created. Now if I do insert into employee table and then values, let's say I do his roll number is 101 and name is only 6 characters. That is who Suraj. Suraj is 5. Okay. And his role is assistant engineer. Okay. And age is 19. So now you can see age criteria is passing. So age is not less than what? His age is not less than 18, so it is passing. But if you see his name is only 5 characters. So it should actually fail. It should say failed. Okay. So it is failing. You can see check constraint, name age check is violated. So what does that mean? So there was some condition that this insertion is failing. So let's say if I add his address also, let's say what is his address? Suraj, say Kumar. Kumar is his other word. So if I do Suraj Kumar and then now try to add, right, it will pass. See, I've added. I do select star from employee table. So you can see we have Suraj Kumar has been added. So age is greater than 19, that is also passing. Name is Suraj Kumar, characters are more than it, that is also passing. Right? That was the way I was able to add Suraj. Okay. So now we have discussed about check as well. So check if you add it in for a particular column, it is column constraint, and you can add only one single column there. But if you add it as a table constraint for check, for primary key, for unique, you can add more than one column name. Okay. So now let us look at the other thing that I was showing, enum. Okay, what does enum constraint mean? Okay. So let us say again we do table, drop table, employee. Let's do modify. Alter table, uh, alter table, what is the name? Employee table. Because enum can only be any among these values, right? So internally it is of type string only, but it can only be among these any of these values. So I cannot add a data type to it and not null also. Okay. So now if I do enter, first of all, it will fail. It will fail saying it is not possible because there is one column where we have given a different select star from table. I do select star from employee table. You see Suraj's occupation is assistant engineer. Okay. So let us change him to intern. Okay, let's do a so to apply. It is not working. Okay. Fine. I'll do it from here. Okay. Apply. So you can also update anything directly from the UI. Okay. So because I changed the value here and did apply. So see, it itself created the query. Update travel.employee table. So this is the name of the database, the name of the table. Set occupation is equal to inter, where ID is 10. Okay, so it only has done this. And it also said the script has been executed successfully. So now if you see, this is changed to inter. So now if I update this, it will work. See, it has worked. Why did it work now? So now because if I add this constraint, all the rows in this specific column, that is occupation, will be following this constraint already. Okay. So now because these are following, I can now add insert into employee table values. So now if I say I want to insert Roll number is 104 and name is Pavitra. Pavitra and so now I'll try to add something which is not. Let's say her occupation is database administrator. Okay, and her age is 19. So will this pass? It won't because it will throw an error. Say it is saying data truncated for column option at row 1. The error messaging is not proper, but it is saying there is some issue with this database admin column of occupation. But now instead, if I give manager, we get added. Okay. So we had also added name age check, right? So let's say Pavitra, what's the full name? Jyoti, Jothy. So now if I add this, why it was failing? Because when I had created the table, I had added a constraint, right? That name and age together should be greater than name size should be greater than need letters. And Pavitra is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is not greater than 8. Okay. So now if I do enter, it should pass. See, it says one row affected. So now if I do select star from star, select star from employee table. So now it will show Pavitra Jyoti manager 19. Okay. Adding a new column. Okay. So that is also there. I'll tell that also. So let us say you just do alter table. Table name is employee table. Add column. And let's say ID was there, name was there, occupation was there, age was there. Let's say we wanted to add manager. Manager. And this is varchar 35 not null. Default I'm a manager, let's assume. So now this will work. So even though I've told that this column should be not null, it will work because by default I'm saying Guruprasad. So whoever were before, right? Suraj, Pavitra. So all of them will get me as their manager. Okay, so I've seen 0 affected, record 0. Before that, let me explain this particular command. So alter table, table name. So when you're adding a column, you use add. When you're deleting a column, you use when you're deleting a column, you use drop. When you're modifying a column, you use modify. And then the name of the column. So the name of the new column is manager. Its data type is of type varchar, and it is not null. It should be not null, and its default value should be Guruprasad. In case if I would have not specified default value, right, it would have failed saying manager is empty. You cannot add anything. Because manager column would have been null, it would have failed saying it is not created, right? So by default, if I create this, all the values will be null, and I have specified it should not be null, so it would have failed. Okay, but now if I see select star from employee table, all of you should have me as a manager, as your manager. Okay, you can see Guruprasad. I think we've discussed most of the stuff. All of this is also mentioned in the slides. We'll just go through the slides and try to recap whatever we did so far. Okay. So column level constraint. So we looked at how many column level constraints, not null. We have seen this in depth and detail. So if we specify not null on any column, at any point in time, it cannot have a null value. So it can be even when you're adding a new column, or let's say you're modifying the column definition, that time you told that this should not be null. So at any point in time, if it fails that constraint, it will not add null. Okay. So how we are able to add this in the beginning of the table creation? Because there are no items inside the table. Because there are no rows inside the table, initially it works. Okay. And then unique. So unique is like all the values that are across the rows for that column should be unique. They should not be repeated. And one more thing to keep in mind, you can have null values inside unique. So null is also a unique value, but you can have only one null value. Let's say you add a null value, and if you try to add one more null value again, it will fail saying null value is already present. Okay. So null value is also considered as one unique value. You cannot add two null values again. Okay. And then you can have as many as unique keys in your table as you want. but there are problems with it. So whenever you say unique, right? So MySQL has to take care that all the values are unique. And also it has, every time you do an insert, it has to search for all the rows and check that this value is not present in my table already. Okay. So you should try to keep only one or two columns as unique or primary key, so that if you add more and more columns as unique, it will have performance impact. Okay. So that is what unique. And about check. Check is you can allow, you can specify certain any condition. So like whatever condition we have used in a where clause, right? So all of those conditions you can specify. And only if the condition is evaluating to true, will be able to insert an item into the table. And even when you're altering the table, if you add a check condition, all the items that are already there inside the table, they should also follow that condition. If they're not following that condition, you'll not be able to add that property, add the check constraint. Okay. So then we also saw default. What will default do? Default will add a predefined value. So if I don't want to add any, let's say if I, while doing a insert, if I don't want to give a same value every time, I can say, so this is the default value. Only if you want to modify that value, you can add that value. Okay. So like for example, we did here manager, right? So default manager is Guruprasad. So let us say for somebody else, the manager changed. So that time what I can do, I can say, instead of doing default, I'll actually specify who. Just show you. Insert into employee table. And then you have, so since I have to specify now, I'll do values directly. Values. Say 140 is the roll number. The name of the person is who is missed. Who else is there? I see very less people. Chetan KSHIR Shirsagar. And Shirsagar. And this has to be either any of the enums. So let's say he's an intern and his age is 20. And now I can specify, if I specify something else, now it will be different. So let us say Pavitra is the manager of Chetan. So now I've inserted it successfully. So if we do select star from employee table, so you can see. So by default, it is Guruprasad. But if you don't if you want to specify something externally, we can specify. So here I specified. So let us say for somebody else. But if I'm not wanting to specify, no, I have to specify here what all I want to insert. So here I'll be inserting roll number, should take 142 as primary. So let's say name, occupation, and age. So now I add values. Name is, say it as Abhishek Yadav. And if I don't give anything here, so you can see we are not specifying anything. Manager is also not given anything. But if I do control enter, so it has been successfully added. If I do this, Abhishek Yadav, he's getting the default manager. So I have the default manager. Okay. So that was what was default. And we discussed about primary key as well. So we'll learn more usage about primary key when we do joins and all. But for now, a primary key cannot be null or empty. All items in a primary key column are unique. So if it is a one unique column or two unique columns, so you can have one or two columns as the primary key, and all of together they'll be unique. And at any time there can only be one primary key column in a table. So you can have only one primary key definition. You cannot have more than one. Okay. And then we also saw other column level constraints, that is auto increment. So what auto increment was doing, whatever is the last added number, it will automatically add +1 to it. Okay. It can only do +1. So we don't have an option to say do +10 or add some string to it, add any random value. So that is not available with us. So we can only do +1 to whatever was inserted in the last. Okay. And we also discussed about enum. So enum in itself is a enum in itself is a like what do you say? It's a variable type. but here it is internally stored as string, and you can specify whatever values you want. So when you're creating a table or when you're adding, the values inside that column should only be among any of these enum values. Okay. So these are at column level. And this also we saw how we want to name a constraint, so that if we name a constraint, whenever the constraint check is failing, it becomes very easy for us to see that, okay, what constraint has failed, what column that I'm trying to add has failed. Okay, this also we discussed. And then we have table level constraints. So table level constraints, as I told you, so this we add them here at the bottom layer. So this is table constraints. So even table level constraints are same. Whatever we had at column level, we can use most of them in table level. So we discussed about unique, we discussed about check, we discussed about primary key. Okay. So there is another concept that is called as foreign key. Okay. So what is a foreign key? Okay. Let me show you with an example. Let's take paint. Okay. So let us say I had one table. And this table has a ID, and this has the name of the customer. Okay, and it has all customer properties, age, phone number, etc., etc., etc. And here ID is primary key. Okay, so I'll say PK for primary key. And let us say we want to have another table. So this is Amazon. And so Amazon, we have another table called orders. Okay, so here we have customer ID. So this is the same, whatever is here, customer ID. And then we have the order ID. So this is saying, it is not looking clear a bit. So this is customer ID and this is order ID. Okay. So this ID here is primary key. So it means all the numbers in this are unique and it doesn't have any null values. So for example, if Akanksha has ID 1, I also cannot have ID 1. So if I'm Guru, I'll have ID 2, ID 3 or whatever. Okay. So these IDs are always different. So now if these are the customers, so the customer ID here also should be like unique, not unique. So what do I mean? So if there is any order, one question let me ask you. So who can order products? It's always customer, right? So only customers can order products. Okay. So let us say the customer IDs here are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are only 4 customers. We are starting a new business and our business is very small and we have only 4 customers. Customer IDs are 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So can I have a customer ID 5 here and say 5 customer ID 5 ordered a camera? Is it possible? It is not possible. Why is it not possible? Because there is no customer whose ID is 5. You are giving me some fake information here. Okay. So how do I control that customer IDs here should only be whatever is actually present here? Okay. So like saying I cannot have a customer ID which is not present in this table, in this ID. Okay. So that time what we do is we will make this column customer ID a foreign key. So what is a foreign key? A foreign key is actually referencing a primary key of another table. Okay. So this customer ID is referencing a primary key of another table here, that is ID of this table, customer table. Okay. So this way what happens? So if I'm entering something into this table, let us say I actually had 4 customers only, and by mistake I did 5, and he ordered a camera. So that time this will tell me when I'm inserting it, MySQL will tell me you are trying to insert 5, which is not present in this table at all. So you cannot insert. Okay. So what we have done, we have created a connection between these two tables. Okay. And how is that connection existing? That connection is existing between the customer ID of this table and the ID of this table. Okay. So that is why customer ID becomes a foreign key and it is mapped to the primary key of this table. Okay. So this way it will help us a lot of ways. So let us say what happens. A customer is deleted. So here customer 4, now he says customer 1 only, Akanksha. Akanksha says, I'm not interested with all your products. Your products are bogus. I want to leave your company and go. I want to withdraw everything. So then what you can do, you can, so let us say somebody comes to the, you're a customer support executive and Akanksha comes and tells the customer support executive, I don't want. But she will not give you the ID, right? She'll only give the name. So that time what will happen, there can be more than 2-3 customers whose name is Akanksha. But Akanksha will have some phone number, some random number. So that will be the ID. So then what we'll do, we'll take this ID, we'll check in the orders table. What are all the orders that Akanksha has? So then we can delete them. So if there was no connection between these two tables, I would have no way to know what are the orders that Akanksha has created. Okay. If I would have written Akanksha name only, right here, Akanksha, and she has taken this order, so then it would become very confusing because there'll be more than one people with Akanksha, right? So basically what we're trying to do is take a unique column of one table and map it to another table so that whatever items you are inserting inside this, it has some meaning. It is not just a primary key. You can also reference a column which is unique, right? So even primary key is anyway unique. You can also refer a column which is unique as well. Okay. So these are table level constraints. So just to give an idea of, we already discussed in length about what a primary key is, but I'll just go through the definition. Okay. So it is a column or set of columns that uniquely identifies each row in a table. So that means you can have one column or more than one column also. It is used to enforce the integrity of data in a table by ensuring that there are no duplicate values. So by integrity, we mean that data is not corrupt. Okay. What do I mean by corrupt? So if you have, let's say you have a table and in that table for one single phone number, you have 2 different users. It's like saying on one phone number, you have 2 different WhatsApps. Not possible, right? With one phone number, you can only have one WhatsApp account or something like that. So if a primary key, it ensures that it does not duplicate. Okay. So again, same primary key constraint is used to prevent actions that would create duplicate values. It is implemented on a single column or a multiple columns. You cannot have any null values, and one table can only have one primary key. You can also use alter table and then add a primary key, or you can do a create table and add a primary key. The primary key is also just like what I was discussing now. It is used to establish relation between tables. So you can reference one table's primary key in other table and use it as a foreign key. You can also use, we'll learn about this in future, but you can also use primary keys to join multiple tables. Okay. And then primary keys are also used to index the table. What do I mean by index? Sorry. So because primary keys are unique, it is highly possible that whenever you are searching, right, you want to find out some unique characteristic of a customer and then search. Mostly it's email ID or phone number. That is why whenever you are logging into a website or logging into a app, they ask you either email ID or password, email ID or and password, but phone number also, right? So because they either use email ID and phone number together as a combination of primary key, or they just use one phone number as a primary key. Okay, so that is why if you want to search, you should be able to search it very quickly because the entry point itself is phone number, right? So databases ensure that whatever is primary key is indexed properly and it is very easy to retrieve that quickly. Okay, so this is all about primary key. So a foreign key is a column or set of columns in a table that references the primary key in another table. So just like how we're discussing customer ID table. So that customer ID is actually referencing a primary key of another table. Okay. So it is used to establish link between two tables and it ensures referential integrity. So what do we mean by referential integrity? So whenever we are referencing something from another table, like here I'm referencing customer ID from another table, or let's say the customer ID itself was phone number from another table. Whenever this phone number is deleted, it should not happen that these orders are lying like that only. We should either delete them or mark them null and all. So that is that can be done using foreign key. So since it is a foreign key, we know if anything happens on the primary key of the table, you can do certain actions. That is what it says. A foreign key constraint is used to prevent actions that would destroy link between tables. Will I'll show you what all of this mean, but just try to understand. So again, it can be implemented on one column or multiple columns. It can be a unique key or a primary key of the other table. So these also can tell you if it is a one-to-one or many-to-one relationship. Tell this also. And whatever is the table that you're referencing, right? So in this case, here we had customer table, and here you had orders. So this is a parent and this is child table, parent table. And then, so one table can have multiple foreign keys. So it is not that you can only have one customer ID foreign key. Order ID can also be a foreign key only. You have another table that is orders, and you have the details about orders here. So instead of having all details here, so you just have order ID and you can have order ID here itself. Okay. So it can have there can be more than one foreign keys, and you can use alter table or create table and define foreign keys. And foreign keys also they can also be updated or dropped using alter table or drop table.